Good evening, warm welcome from St. Giles Church. So let us pray. Almighty God, giver of life and love, we bring before you our world. We pray for peace in war-ravaged lands, especially for Afghanistan, for Syria, for Yemen, and for all those fleeing the conflicts of war. We pray for the unrest in Haiti after the assassination of the president, for those regions of the world afflicted by flooding. And we give thanks for the rescue of the 100 children in Nigeria who had been kidnapped by bandits. Almighty God, giver of life and love, we bring before you our nation during the tensions and uncertainties facing us. We ask for your guidance for politicians of all persuasions as the nation adjusts to the task of recovering from the pandemic. We pray for restored prosperity and for the rebuilding of the communal structures within our nation. And we give thanks especially for all those involved in caring for the victims of the pandemic, especially in our local health facilities. Almighty God, giver of life and love, we bring before you this ancient and loyal borough of Newcastle-under-Lyme. After the ravages of the pandemic, we restore prosperity to our local economy. Be with all students who prepare for their exams and for those in the agricultural sector. We pray for a speedy resolution for the ongoing problems surrounding Walleys Quarry. Bless and guide the deliberations of this council and guard and protect its members. We ask, Lord, that you will bless this borough of Newcastle-under-Lyme, this county of Stafford, our sovereign Lady the Queen, and the whole nation. Amen. Amen. And we say together the Lord's Prayer in its traditional version. Feel free to join in with me if you wish. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Good evening, everyone. Please be seated. I welcome those members of the public and press who have joined us this evening by Zoom or YouTube. I would like to invite members to remove their jackets if need be, but I think we're reasonably cool and in here. Right, good evening, members. Before we begin, I need to go over the usual housekeeping rules. For members in the room, the desks have been set at a distance of at least 2 meters and follow COVID secure guidelines. So you may remove face coverings if you wish. If any members want to continue wearing a face covering, please do so. If you need to leave the room during the meeting, please ensure the safety of those around you by wearing a face covering if you leave your seat. There are no fire drills planned for this evening, so if the fire alarm sounds, please leave the building by the nearest exit and assemble in the School Street car park at the rear of the building. Please do not re-enter the building until you are advised to do so. I would like to remind members of protocols around speaking during this meeting. No member should speak until invited to do so by myself. If you wish to speak, please could I ask you to raise your hand high until you have been acknowledged. Please, would all members in the room use their microphones whenever they speak, as without them, anyone joining us remotely will not be able to hear what is being said. To use the microphone, please press the button at the front center when invited to speak and wait a moment for the light on your microphone to come on. Please remember to turn off your microphone once you have finished. Please could I ask those of you in the room at the end of the meeting to make sure that you take all your belongings and waste with you and wipe down your desks and chairs with the spray and wipes provided. Thank you. Turning to the agenda now, members, and starting with agenda item 1, apologies. I've been made aware of apologies from councillors Gary and Simon White, councillor Sylvia Burgess, councillor Elizabeth Shenton, and councillor Bert Proctor. Is there any other apologies, please? Thank you, Councillor Stubbs.
Councillor Rout, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. The next agenda item is item number 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from any members or officers in relation to any items of business on the agenda? I don't see any, so I'll take that as a no. Thank you. Agenda item 3. Members are to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of May 2021, and you will find those minutes on pages 5 to 9 of your agenda. Can the minutes please be agreed? I take it they're agreed. Thank you. Members, agenda item 4 is for Mayor's announcements. Some of you will have a related parties transaction form on your table, which must be completed and returned to the finance section as soon as possible, please. Also, some members have a register of interest form for completion. Please could this also be done as soon as possible and returned to Democratic Services? Thank you. Agenda item 5, Wally's Quarry update. We now turn to the first substantive item of business on this evening's agenda, which is consideration of the Walleys Quarry update. A copy of the report and associated papers can be found on pages 11 to page 30 of your agenda. There is also a supplementary agenda with additional papers for consideration on this item, which have been placed on your desks. I will ask Councillor Simon Tagg to introduce agenda item 5 to the council and move the recommendation on page 11. I understand Councillor Sweeney intends to second that recommendation. So therefore, Councillor Simon Tagg, will you please now introduce the Walleys Quarry update report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening. Before us is an update report following the special meeting which we had in March. The operators of the site continue to allow toxic gases to spew from the Walleys Quarry landfill, and we have the continued poor performance of the Environment Agency as the regulator to do anything about it. And we have ministers not willing to launch an independent inquiry into the failures of the Environment Agency over a long period. There continues to be a high number of complaints. Readings from the monitoring station still show readings above World Organization nuisance levels. And PHE have now woken up to the health risks associated with the stink. The terrible situation has been compounded in recent days by the heat wave. And we were told that the warmer weather would mean there'd be less stink. I think we're finding that's not the case. So what on earth is going to happen when the weather changes in the winter and we get those oppressive low pressures coming in, which were causing massive problems over the winter and the spring. So given the people higher up the chain than us that aren't really taking this seriously, in my view, it has been left to the council to continually force the pace. And as you will see from the recent cabinet agenda that's attached to the report, and the supplementary report this evening from the Cabinet that took place earlier today, these outline the work of officers to investigate the stink, the legal position relating to a statutory nuisance, and also Cabinet have supported a scheme for respite for those suffering from the most, obviously, existing health problems that have been exacerbated by the constant stink that people are having to put up with and the gas which they're having to breathe in. And we've approached the government for funding for that scheme. Cabinet also requested the Staffordshire Health Scrutiny Committee meet here in Newcastle to discuss the health issues, and for Public Health England and county health officials to come along and for all councillors to be invited. That will take place next Monday. As we've seen from the impact survey done by the MP that's been echoed by the Staffordshire County Council online survey, the MP's data is on page 11 of the report. And as you can see, headaches, nausea, feeling sick, eye irritation, stress, insomnia, depression, it goes on, panic attacks. This is what people are suffering regularly in and around the quarry area and also further afield. Cabinet earlier today heard from our officers obviously the latest information on the possibility of an abatement notice, and we agreed to allot funds up to £1 million aside so that can be fought. And the officers have done, I must say, a brilliant job. It's taken a long time, but it's had to take that long. I know some of the public have been, sort of really impatient, as you can imagine, having to put up with this. But our officers have undertaken extensive work to establish whether a statutory nuisance exists. Regular odour tours, in and out of hours, and also witnessing odours, working with specimen properties, assessing odours in residents' homes, securing additional air quality monitoring data through a joint funded 4 stationary units operated by the EA, commissioned expert analysis of the data by air quality consultants, and commissioned advice from a landfill expert, analysed over 750 impact statements provided by the community via the Stop the Stink Cap It Off groups, and also collected statements from residents in affected areas and secured legal advice from a Queen's Counsel. And as you will see on the supplementary addendum that's come to us today, Cabinet did agree for that extra money. And if you would turn to 6 on page 6, you'll see there that the Head of Environmental Services has concluded that odours do amount to a statutory nuisance. The Council has retained the services of a leading environmental QC to advise on the next steps and to ensure that any action now taken are properly executed. This will involve ensuring full consideration is given to the range of parties, and an abatement notice should be served on, which would include contractors operating on the site and companies within the same group as Walleys Quarry Limited. As we know, there are a number of companies operating within that group, pyramid structure, I believe. Care also needs to be taken to ensure that any notices are precisely drafted, and this to ensure they survive any appeal process. I think this is the right thing to do. Cabinet unanimously agreed it today, and I hope to see that notice served in the nearest possible time. But I would say to the community, it won't be served by midnight tonight. It probably won't be served by the end of the week. It will be served when we're in the best position to take that forward and lead hopefully to a prosecution and a significant fine for the operator, or a multiple of fines if necessary. So, Mr. Mayor, that's my introductory remarks. And I think, again, I will just say thank you from our Chief Executive down to our Head of Environmental Health, to all the officers that have gone out on the ground, and also to all those residents that have taken part, affectionately known as the Stink Squad, and also to our local MP that has fought hard and taken this right up to the top tables in Parliament. He needs to continue to do that, and we need to continue to keep the pressure on, and we will do. And I think, as we saw in our March meeting, obviously we came together without any politics involved, and I hope we can continue to do that as we fight this cause on behalf of our residents, hopefully through to a prosecution of the culprits of this awful situation that some of our residents across the borough are suffering. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tagg. Councillor Stephen Sweeney, do you wish to second the recommendations?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I just put a couple of things out. When we took over the council, there was, I think, 1.3 million in the reserves. That went up to 1.548 million. And now we're in a position, I think we've got 3.1 million in our general fund reserve, and that's where this money is going to come from. I don't think anybody who lives in the borough would think this was a bad idea. I don't know how people cope with this revolting situation. And I think it's money well spent. Obviously, QCs and BAS and things like that, it's not cheap, but I think it's money very well spent. What I would like to do, I think the leader perhaps is too modest. He's praising the chief exec and the environmental services, the legal people. He's not saying anything about himself. And I think he's been at a great amount of work on this and a great amount of comments from local residents. And I think credit to the leader for that. And Twitter and Facebook, I don't do any of these things, but he does. And I think it's a tremendous example he's led. But no, I think we've got to do something about this. The Environment Agency doesn't appear to be capable of acting. They don't seem to be doing anything. And I think it's left to us to do. I think we should be doing it. I think the Environment Agency should be doing it. They give the wretched permission for this thing. And I think it's going to be down to us to deal this abatement notice. I absolutely support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Members, we now move to the debate for this item. Can I ask you to indicate by raising a hand if you wish to speak, please? Julie Cooper, Councillor Hutton, David Jones, Andrew Fee. I've got Councillor Hutton. Marion, did you wish to speak? Okay. Thank you. I've got a list of speakers, thank you, and I'll take them in order that they've been written down, if I may. Councillor Stubbs, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It goes without saying that the Labour group of councillors will absolutely support this tonight. What has been going on there is scandalous. What continues to go on there is scandalous. And that so many residents are affected by this is purely scandalous. I have concerns, though, from a legal standpoint. I absolutely agree 100%, and so does every member of my group, that this money should be set aside. But I have a few questions with regard to the legalities of how it's been done so far, and to give the administration and indeed the officers the opportunity to make sure that there's no loophole, that Red Industries, or whatever they want to call themselves these days, come back at a legal standpoint and question that we did this right. So I'm asking rather than telling. Does Cabinet have the power to alter the agreed budget without reference to full council? Reserves lie with full council. They were approved at the full council, and to change them so markedly without coming to full council, because there's no mention in the financial restrictions this evening on this report with regard to that £1 million. Everybody in this room agrees that it should be made available, but can the officers please confirm that what has been done is legal, or if it can be brought to full council as soon as humanly possible to make sure that every T is crossed and every I is dotted. What will now happen to the General Fund Reserve? Is there a plan to top this up again, especially if COVID-related and other financial risks identified that the initial reserve of 3 million is insufficient, as mentioned on the 7th of July Cabinet report? Can I ask how the £1 million was calculated? It seems a very round figure. Can we have a full breakdown of that budget, please? And finally, Mr. Mayor, where is the updated financial risk assessment that has been requested and hasn't been provided? Every member in this chamber has the right to see that before making a decision at the next full council as to whether these reserves are met. Mr. Mayor, let me be very clear. I want this to happen, but I want it to happen correctly. And I fear that any loophole that we provide the operator of that site will be absolutely used. They've already taken on and beaten the Environment Agency on at least one occasion. Please let it not happen to us. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. I'm sure you'll have a response to your question shortly. The next member on the list is Councillor Andrew Fee, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I very much welcome the decisions the Cabinet has made this afternoon. It's a shame they have to be done this way. And again, I think I would only voice the frustration of pretty much everyone, perhaps everyone in this room, at the really very dilatory way the Environment Agency has approached this matter. It's a great shame, and I think those running that organisation should take a long, hard look at themselves, quite frankly. They have let this town down very, very badly. And of course, it is also an object lesson in why quangocracy is a bad thing. These people are responsible to no one. We can't get at them, and that is a terrible thing. And it's a lesson out there for us in the broader political debate. Clearly, these things take time. Councillor Stubbs has already alluded to the less than transparent way I would suggest that the operator likes to go about his business. And we've got to be very careful. There's no two ways about that. And I welcome our request for clarification. I've little doubt that our officers have done this stuff, but it is important to do it right. The report in front of us makes very sober reading, doesn't it? The MP survey, it's horrendous stuff. Going home last night from the council meeting, I went down the Ulm Road and I felt for the people down there. I went into the stink and I came out of it mercifully on the other side, and it didn't come and visit me. But those people in a heat wave are locked in houses, they can't open their windows, and this cannot be right. So I very much welcome the council's efforts to move on this item. It is a bit of a hare and a tortoise job, isn't it? Unfortunately, we've got to go slowly because we've got to get it right. Otherwise, we'll get nowhere at all. But this, I think, is very much a step in the right direction. And I, for one, I'm pretty much sure that everyone else in this room will be voting for the recommendations this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Fear. The next councillor name on the list is Councillor Dave Jones, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd also like to put on record my thanks to the officers for the hard work they've gone through in preparing this report, and not just in this report's preparation, but in the many months of work they've put into compiling the data to ensure that this council, in agreeing this, is able to undertake its functions to protect our residents without worry of being subject to loopholes. I think we have always been quite clear on this, that we as a group support all action on ensuring that this situation is resolved for our residents as soon as possible. And the serving of an abatement notice is something that residents and campaign groups have been calling for quite a while. And I think we've been very clear in communicating with residents and in telling them that it is something that we have to ensure that we get right. So it's very good to see that we're at a point where we feel that it is time to serve such a notice, and I entirely support that. I'd just like to pick up on a few things. The put on record my heartfelt thoughts to residents who are suffering through the weather that we have at the moment. I agree with Councillor Fear. I came through Ulm Road myself last night after the same meeting, and the smell was absolutely atrocious. And to imagine that residents were trying to sleep through that with windows that they had to close, trying to cope with the heat, it's just not acceptable. And actually, it rings true with conversations that myself and Councillor Fox-Hewitt and Ruth Jones MP, who's the Shadow Minister for Air Quality, who's come up to support the campaign on this. We had conversations with Dr. Scott, the GP at Silverdale, and Dr. Scott said that he's had to change prescriptions for patients. He's had to increase doses of medication. And in that conversation, I asked him, is this just respiratory-based medication? Is this asthma inhalers? Is this medication for mental health? He said it's a combination of the two. But one of the most alarming prescriptions that he's writing is prescriptions to help people sleep, because people are struggling to sleep at night. And I think it's quite difficult for us to try and understand that. And for those of us who live at Keele, we did find that out, because I know this morning I was woken up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning by the smell that had spread up to Keele. And to have that occur every day in this kind of weather, you can only try and guess how that makes residents feel and the situation they're going through. So it's quite clear, certainly clear to me, that the site is producing a nuisance odor, that is a nuisance, that it is impacting on people's health, that it is impacting on people's quality of life. I look forward to the meeting on Monday. Unfortunately, I'm in hospital on Monday, so I'll be unable to attend that meeting. So I'll put my apologies on record now. But I think what has certainly shown this council in its best light is the way that we have been able to respond to the residents in a cross-party fashion without the need to descend into politics, because there's no politics with this stink. It stinks your house, and it doesn't matter what party you vote for or what badge you wear, it's still going to stink your house regardless. And I think that has been commendable for this council. But overall, I think what we should commend is the residents' campaign groups, because throughout this entire situation, where they have struggled with the odour, where they've struggled with sleep, where they have had family members' health severely impacted by this, they have done everything by the book. They have stood there, they have protested, they have done everything by the book. And I think we should commend our residents for that, because it shows that we are serving probably, and I say this, the best residents that this country has to offer, because in spite of all of what they have faced, they have still stood there stoically and said enough is enough. And we really owe it to them to support them in this action. So of course, we'll be voting for this. Of course, it has my absolute support. And I only hope that we can conclude the matter of the abatement as soon as possible and not get dragged through red tape on this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. I'd like to ask Councillor Hudden to comment, please. Councillor Hudden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was talking to some residents at the end of June who have lived through this stink for quite some time. And they said that the stink was manageable and bearable up until the landfill came above ground. And it has steadily got worse and worse and worse, with the end of February being the black spot. So I don't know if we've got any information which would bear that out, but it seems to me that that's an important point made by somebody who's lived through this for the last 20 years. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hudden. I've got Councillor Williams. I assume that's Councillor John Williams.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, as a representative for Crossheath on this council, I totally agree that what's been said, and this £1 million put to one side to fight for the residents of this borough. I think I'm saying that to a united borough, and I think the members, all residents throughout the borough, and some don't get affected by this stink, will agree, I'm sure will agree, that this fighting fund should be allocated. Councillor Fear, I know he's the chair of the planning committee, and whether he agree what I'm going to say. As we sit on the planning committee, and we refused a planning application at the bottom of Keel Bank for so many houses. We sat there and we refused that planning application on one of the grounds of the stink. The Environment Agency are consultees to the planning. So we challenge, we don't know who they are, has been intimated. But it went to the planning inspector, and the planning inspector gave permission for those houses to be built, because the Environment Agency will control the stink. Now, come on, where are we? That we ratepayers' money, that our budget has been reduced and reduced over the years. We've got to be paid back, you know. But it's ratepayers' money that we are spending to fight something really that we have, for whatever reason, whatever powers we've got, have got no hold on. And it's absolutely ridiculous state of affairs. It's a government body, and the government should be paying. They are in power. Where the county council are putting money in it, I don't know. But I really feel, I agree with that money should be spent, but at the same time, it's hard-earned money, taxpayers' money of this borough. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Next name on the list, Councillor Fox-Hewitt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ultimately, I do support the decision, given the scale of the problem and the strength of feeling across the whole borough, alongside, of course, the genuinely serious concerns on public health. But I do just want to say that I don't think it's the council and by extension the borough's residents that should be footing the bill for this, because the money could be spent on other things. So what I'd like to see is both the county council and central government supporting this, if not solely, then by way of a tripartite agreement. And I would ask that all efforts do go on to try and pursue that and get that secured. The other area I'd just like to comment on is, as part of the wider response from the council, is the local schools. When the schools return in September, the autumn and winter season will be approaching. And I think the conditions and environments at which our children and young people are going to be subjected to and expected to learn in does need supporting. I've seen a lot of fundraising attempts happening on social media for air purifiers, for example, for the schools. And I do think that's something that as a council we have a responsibility to. So I'd like to see us supporting that as well as part of the measures. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fox-Hewitt. I've got Councillor Julie Cooper, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to say thank you very much to all the officers for all the hard work they've been doing, and also for the health scrutiny. I'm glad they're coming over from Stafford to here, so they can actually, Stafford Health Scrutiny can join ours and the rest of the councillors can be here. Unfortunately, I've had to send my apologies, because I'll be on my way to Swansea. What I wanted to say was I'm really a bit miffed because it's taken us so long to get to where we are now, and really I'm very much behind it. And as soon as we can get this notice done, the better, because I'm listening to Radio Stoke every morning. And as I said before, in March, I'm fed up of hearing about Newcastle being the stinky city. And the other week, there was a protest out there, and for 7 hours, they actually protested. So they couldn't get any of the waste into the quarry. They were turning trucks back. Now, yeah, but people are putting their lives on the line because it wasn't told that they were going to do this. The police didn't know about it till it was late. So the police were called in then. So the sooner we get this notice out, hopefully we won't have to be putting people's lives on the line. And then what got me after that, the quarry people turned around and said, we want a meeting with the police because we're protesting when they did it illegally. But people are standing up for what they believe in. And as I said in March, we're not going to go away. The environment can do what they want, but then we're not going to go away. We're going to fight this lot through. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. I've got Councillor Marion Reddish, please.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't want to repeat anything that's already been said, but I certainly endorse everything that's been said. Actually, I wasn't as lucky as Councillor Fear and Councillor James last night, because as I drove up Orme Road to my house, it stayed in my house until midday today. So I didn't go in and come out. It stayed in my property and is still there, actually. So I'd like to just say, really, as a resident who lives quite close to the quarry, but as a Thistlebury councillor, how grateful the public are for the work that collectively officers, councillors and Stop the Stink group are achieving. One thing that worries me slightly is that in the media, and the message that seems to be misinterpreted is that the council is looking to close the quarry, full stop. Now, I know that's not quite true. What we're saying is that we want different administration and we want different people regulating the quarry. But I'm a bit concerned because residents are saying, hooray, the council are going to close the quarry. And I think I'd put a message out there, really. or a plea out there that we just explain it a little bit better, that it's not closed full stop. Because some of us know that if we closed full stop, the smell wouldn't go away straight away. And the other thing, I've got to say this, I probably won't be popular. The Stop the Stink group has done a really good job. And I endorse a lot of the work they've done. But I am now having quite a few residents say to me, I'm frightened, Marion, because I'm being issued with death threats. I've been issued with fireworks through my letterbox. People are approaching me and being very abusive. And that concerns me, because I think the principle of the group is very good. And I don't want to stifle the principle. But I'm just wondering if there's anything that the council can do to just say to these people, actually, don't go too far. Don't spoil the good work you're doing by threatening people. That is really my message. But yes, thank you to everybody who's doing so much. I hope I contribute. And certainly I can speak. You know, I think Councillor Hudden was saying it would be interesting to know from residents the present situation. I, like the resident that Councillor Hudden quoted, didn't think the smell was as bad as some people thought until about a year ago, when it has got a lot worse. I was going to say 10 times, perhaps that's an exaggeration, a lot worse. And certainly now it is intolerable. As I say, I've now had the smell in my house for 24 hours. I went away last week and opened my front door when I came back. And wow, I was really literally knocked back by the smell. And clearly as a council, that's not right, and we've got to do something about it.
Thank you, Councillor Reddish. Councillor Sue Moffat, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's just a couple of things I'd like to say. First of all, I'd like to agree with Councillor Cooper in the comments that she was making about residents and in particular, the recent protest. Red Industries, over an extended period of time, have pushed our residents to the point, ordinary, decent people like the people sitting in this room tonight, where they have come to the end of their tether, and ordinary, decent citizens of Newcastle Borough are being criminalised, are being pushed into situations that they would never have dreamt of if it wasn't for this ongoing, deplorable mess that Red Industries have made. I'd just like to remind all of you people there in the Stop the Stink groups in Newcastle-under-Lyme that we are fortunate in the United Kingdom to live in a democratic country where our rights to protest are absolutely embedded in law. It's part of our British values. In fact, I'm sat here with the government page open on protest. The protest, the message to Red Industries, was not illegal. We have the right in this country to protest. If there was a march organised, then you do need to give the police 6 days notice, but it is not illegal to protest. And some of the fallout of that recent thing has been in danger of splitting the community, who have been really unanimous in standing together. So I would also plea to the Stop the Stink groups, to the community, stand strong together, because this council is going to stand strong with you. The other point that I would like to make is to echo the point made by Councillor Williams. The people of Newcastle-under-Lyme have paid and are paying already for the stink. They're paying with their health, they're paying with their mental health and well-being, they're paying with the fact that they cannot go out into their gardens, they cannot enjoy sitting there in this great weather. They're paying through fundraising, through buying air purifiers to put into their homes. I was heartened to see the government and the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom say that this has gone on for too long. Well, it has gone on for too long. He said that he would like to see it end before too long. Well, too long has already passed the end date. So yes, I absolutely support fighting this company and putting things right. But why should people in Newcastle be paying over and over and over with the money, with their well-being? I would really like to encourage the council to get the government to support us locally, not to put the burden upon the people in Newcastle. Get the county council to support us and stand shoulder to shoulder like we are as a borough council with ourselves and with the residents of Newcastle. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moffat. Councillor Mark Holland, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo a lot of what's been said already. I think a number of councillors have spoken very movingly of their own experience and of their solidarity with the campaign group whose efforts deserve our thanks. I hesitate to disagree with Councillor Reddish, but I'm going to. I'm afraid, because I took a role in drafting some of the text that we voted on at our special council meeting. It is the settled position of this council that it would be better if the thing was capped off. That is an expression of frustration. Of course, all methods that are necessary to be used or that are desirable should be pursued in finding a good outcome. But the frustration that our residents have brought to us was expressed by this council in one voice when we met. And it is our view that it should be capped off, that the stink must be stopped. And if that's what it takes, if that's what is necessary, it is what should be done. I'm also extremely, I think, pleased to see our cabinet, our administration, taking a strong line on this. The documents that have been circulated tonight as a supplementary agenda to the report that's in front of us have detailed the work that has been ongoing. It's extremely welcome that the careful work of our officers towards the issuing of an abatement notice is now in the process of bearing fruit. It is budding, if not actually bearing that fruit. It is a painfully slow process, but we all know why that is, and we all understand that these legal necessities take time. And I agree with councillors who've said what an unfortunate situation it is that we've had to go through that process, because there is a public body that has the power, that has the responsibility to tackle this, that has all of the means necessary at its disposal to bring this to a conclusion. And I must share the frustration of others when they have said they do not believe that the Environment Agency has done enough or has acted quickly enough. And that's not just me saying that, that's not just the leader of this council saying that, that's the Prime Minister saying that. And now is the time for all good ministers to listen to their Prime Minister and those ministers at DEFRA to respond to some of the correspondence, for example, that we've seen in our paperwork this evening. I'm not confident that I would agree with Councillor Fox-Hewitt's request that on this matter we should seek joint funding or a tripartite agreement with national or other local authorities. And I say that because our environmental health function is a function of this council. We are the Environmental Health Authority, and the things that are being proposed tonight, the things that Cabinet has agreed and the things that are on our agenda are things which are appropriate for us as the Borough Council to be doing. It is a great shame that it costs so much money. We all recognise why that is. I have to say, I disagree very strongly with Councillor Stubbs, and while I would expect that our administration will give a dignified riposte to him, I think his remarks would have been better if he'd finished up after he'd said the first thing which he said, which is that he agrees with what we're doing. This council only has £1 million in its reserves to spend on this because of the careful financial management under this administration. This is a council that Councillor Stubbs left in rather worse financial state and complained about Tory cuts, and their response on the other side of this room was to cut services and to close down services Well, thanks to the administration, we have got money in the reserves that we can throw at this. Thanks to the administration and the reassurances they've already given tonight that absolutely every effort will be made to ensure that not a penny of this money is spent in vain. I will be voting for the resolutions as printed, and I know everyone else will as well. My residents will absolutely welcome the fact that we are doing what we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. Got Councillor Paul Northcott, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Without wishing to recycle some of the comments that have already been made, I largely agree with a lot of it. It's been mentioned tonight by Councillor Moffat about, and Councillor Fox-Hewitt about funding with other partners. But as I've said before, let's get this right. This is simply about the residents of Newcastle in our borough, and we have a duty as a council advocate to make sure that their lives, and that there's quite significant numbers here, we're not talking about one or two, have a fair chance at this. We're doing something within our scope of practice in terms of what we can actually do. Yes, we would like the powers of the EA to be able to modify things further, but as it stands, we have the card to play in terms of the nuisance abatement notice, and I think that most residents will agree that we're acting reasonably, we're acting fairly and equitably for the right reasons to make sure that something is done about the stink, because it quite clearly can't go on in its present format. Only to do that, we need to put pressure and to bear pressure upon them. So I will be voting for this wholeheartedly in terms of the resolution. And I think that other councils will be also minded to do this, bearing in mind, this is all about the residents here. It's not about party politics. It's not about anything else. It's purely about the lives that have been affected on a great scale, 24 hours a day in some cases, that this needs to be cleared up and a suitable management process to how things are going to proceed. Obviously, the quarry, I don't think realistically we can think that we can close it. I think that what we can do is to manage how it goes forward from this day on, from when we serve the abatement notice, and from hopefully further engagement with other partners if we can in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Northcott. Any other members wishing to speak? I can see Councillor Trevor Johnson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we've got to also put a little bit of a spin on this, but if the prosecution is successful, the costs will be awarded and we should be okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Anyone else or? No. Okay. All right. I would ask Councillor Stephen Sweeney as the seconder of the motion if he would like to add any further comments, please.
No, Mr. I think everything's been said. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. I come to Councillor Simon Tagg as the mover of the substantive motion to sum up the debate, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think initially, obviously, the first person to respond was Councillor Stubbs. I believe it's a cabinet decision which we've taken, but I'm going to call on one of our officers just to clarify that, and then I will continue my summing up after, if that's okay. I don't know who wants to take it on the floor there, Chief Executive.
Yeah, I'll just sort of direct the questions, if I may, members, because Dan Dickinson will address the sort of the legal aspects, and Sarah will touch on the issues around the risk assessment, and I think Dan will also pick up on the distinction around how we've actually allocated this as a ring-fenced reserve rather than a revenue estimate. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. So picking up on the estimate, first of all, in situations like this, without a crystal ball, all you can do is try and go off your experience and the experience of those you speak to on what's gone before. And we had a very lengthy conversation with Queen's Counsel when we were strategizing, and the figure that we have come up with there is what we think we could be into if we go the distance on this, based on experience that I have and that Queen's Counsel has and others in his chamber have of similar scenarios. Now, we hope and expect not to use that full amount, but I think it's right and proper that we are transparent about that and about earmarking or ring fencing or whatever the term is, a portion of reserves to be called down on when it comes to it, to use that amount. And we will, of course, answering Councillor Stubbs' question, follow all of the council financial procedure rules when it comes to drawing down on any or all of those sums. And the other point that I'd just like to add, if I can give some reassurance to Councillor Stubbs, is that the manner in which we attend to our housekeeping in terms of our financial procedure rules doesn't impact upon the validity to serve an abatement notice. I am content that we have done and we will do everything that we need to do to make sure that is rock solid in terms of the decision making.
Thank you. I'd just like to address, obviously, the update on the risk assessment. I've completed this, and within our risk assessment, we have a section that's related to COVID pressures, obviously, from what's happened over the last sort of 18 months in the pandemic. So the areas that I've really focused on are income losses from closure of sites, the reduction in demand for facilities, collection fund, etc., regarding losses of non-payment of council tax and NNDR. When we originally set this risk assessment, this was at the height of the pandemic. So when this facility, for example, was closed, when the car parks were closed and the income was not coming in at all. So we've been back and reviewed those, and we've adjusted the weightings on those risk assessments now, which is the actual risk assessments associated with the COVID pandemic totaled 1.665 million. So the £1 million has come from that section. That section is still in there and still amounts to best part of £700,000. We should also note that the first quarter of this year, we have had central government funding in relation to income losses. So for April, May and June, when we were still sort of kicking up services, we have still got central government covering 75% of those income losses. And additionally, we also have £100,000 income reserve as well, on top of the 2.1 million, well, the 2 million that's actually left in the general fund balance. So that's how I've sort of approached the risk assessment, and certainly I can circulate a revised copy of the risk assessment out to members. Thank you.
Can I go back to...
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the officer clarification.
Tag, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the officer clarification. And I think it is moving around a reserve, isn't it? And ring fencing a reserve. And the Cabinet agreed in one of its recommendations today that when the money is actually drawn down as part of any action we take, that is taken by the Director of Operational Services in consultation with myself as the leader of the council to call on that reserve to meet any of the potential costs associated with serving and progressing a notice. Just to be clear, the decision we took as a Cabinet earlier was purely the financial issue. We have no politics. Councillors can't become involved in whether we serve an abatement notice. That sits solely with our environmental health officer. And as we've seen in our latest report, and also what I said in my opening remarks, obviously the head of environmental health services concluded that is the route which she wants to take after all of those checks and balances which are in item 6 on the agenda. I think it's really important, really, that when we look at this, we look at what we're doing for the people of Newcastle, isn't it? And I think Trevor Johnson put it on the head there, with the costs issue. We hope to, through a successful pursuit of an abatement notice, statutory nuisance, is that we'll get costs back to reimburse on a successful resolution of that. And I think I have confidence that, and I've seen, and I've really been thinking, come on, let's get on with this, but I know we've had to go through the process, double check the evidence again, find new sources of evidence, which we have done, and to create a case which we hope will stand up to scrutiny in a court, and we can get some you know, a little bit. It won't stop the stink, but it will certainly make those people that are responsible for it pay. And I think that is where we're at the moment, because the council cannot close the site, the council cannot restrict the site, the council cannot order works to be done on the site. That is the regulator of the permit, which is the Environment Agency, can do that. And they have chosen not to do the first three, but they have asked the operator to do works on the site. But as we know, they haven't been successful to date. If anything, in some situations, in intensity and bursts of odour, it is actually getting worse. And then, of course, exasperated by the hot weather. As I said at the beginning, it's supposed to be better in the hot weather. So what on earth is going to happen in the winter? So we have to keep the pressure up. And I'm really pleased with where we've got to today. I think that the recommendation before us in this report is that the council notes, obviously, the current position and also the reports that are before us. So I would move that we do that, and that includes the late report we've had from Cabinet this afternoon. I hope all members can support that this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tagg. Okay, everyone has spoken, so we need to put the proposal to the vote of all members, please. If you could indicate whether you're in favour, please. I think that's rather unanimous. Anyone at all against? No members against. So thank you for that. The motion is carried. Agenda item 6, the recommendation of the Independent Remuneration Panel. Members, the next substantive item of business was intended to be the recommendation of the Independent Remuneration Panel. However, the IRP are still in the process of considering a draft report with recommendations to the council. So this item will now have to be brought to a future council meeting, and we will be updated accordingly. We move on to agenda item 7, statement of the leader of the council. Members, the next item of business on this evening's agenda is the leader's statement. A copy can be found on pages 31 to 33 of your agenda. Councillor Simon Tagg, would you like to move that the statement be discussed, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, move the statement to be discussed, and I'm willing to take any questions or comments, and also willing to bring in any cabinet members where appropriate.
Okay, thank you for that. We will take the statement a paragraph at a time, and I will allow the leader or relevant cabinet portfolio holder to respond to any comments or questions before moving to the next paragraph. I will take comments or questions 3 at a time on the same paragraph. If I could just remind members that this isn't a debate. Once the leader has responded, there is no right for members to reply. Paragraph 1, cabinet meetings. Excluding any items that are covered by the paragraphs below, do members have any comments or questions on this? No? We move on. Paragraph 2, one council programme. Do members have any comments or questions on this? I see we have Councillor Dave Jones, Mark Holland and Rufia. If I could take them in that order, please. And Councillor Moffat.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I welcome any level of efficiency work that goes on with the council services and operations. Obviously, we want to have a organisation that is as efficient as possible to provide the best value for our ratepayers. I have, however, witnessed similar processes occur at county level where there's been a drive towards digitisation of services and interaction with residents. And that's something that certainly I had a significant amount of concern from residents that continued on after it was implemented regarding digital exclusion. We have to remember that a large number of residents within our borough don't have access to, or even if they do have access to the internet or devices to use that, they're not literate with utilising the systems and the complexity of those systems, and quite often struggle with it. So I think I'm seeking reassurance from leader or cabinet member that any one council programme process will include appropriate assessment of the impact on those residents who are less digitally accessible.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Would you like to comment after the questions? I'm sorry. Councillor Mark Holland, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been great to see the One Council programme being brought forward, and I've had the opportunity of seeing a lot of the work that's being done on it. I'm sure that the leader has an excellent answer to give to Councillor Jones's question about digital exclusion. But would the leader also agree with me that it's nice to see that within our authority, so many people are working so productively, and that there's a really excellent working relationship in human resources between the council and the trade unions? And would the leader care to comment on how much better that relationship is than under the previous administration's terrible relationship with the trade unions?
Thank you, Councillor Holland. Councillor Andrew Fear, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I too welcome the development of the One Council system. I'm not quite, I think, as concerned as Councillor Jones about people not having access to this. We do have a backup, and more people, I think, including even people like my mother in her 80s now are au fait with digital things. However, those things having been said, it has to be said that our current website, when you enter it, it's a little bit like Theseus going into the Minotaur's labyrinth. Tonight, I looked at the supplementary papers for this meeting before I came, and it took me about 4 clicks, I think, to get there, and some of them were tucked away in little corners. So if we're going to go down this route, would the leader agree with me that we need a much more streamlined and a much more obvious website so that residents have access to the service they need, and they're not tucked away in little corners on those pages, but those pages are clear, and it only takes you, say, 2 clicks to get to the information you need? Because at the moment we've got really, sadly, haven't we, a rather cluttered website as it stands.
Thank you, Councillor Fear. Councillor Sue Moffat, please. Sorry. Would you like to respond to the
three at
questions?
a time, yes, as many as I can remember. Thank you, Councillor Jones. No, completely agree with you, and there's no plans to turn off the traditional ways of communicating. I think really that those become even more streamlined during the One Council approach, because it's all about the back office being digitised, no papers and forms going around. It's all electronic and is a faster service. And I think reflecting on what he says about Staffordshire County Council, I think that's a common complaint with everybody. That was a mistake, and I do know that is being reviewed as highways is looked at in a whole, particularly people that are reporting things, and on potholes, using the report it online feature is the only way to do it. I think that's the wrong thing to do, and something I don't want to see this council go down. What I want to see is a better customer service, and that's for anybody that contacts the council. And more people will be contacting the council via online measures going forward, but there was always going to be that you know, that smaller group, not necessarily elderly, but, you know, it may be because of situations with the finances that can't access those things, but we'll always provide, you know, a face-to-face and phone service, but it'll be a better and a more responsive one. Thank you, Mark, for your comment. Yes, the unions are working closely with us. We have a good relationship with them, which hasn't always been the case, as you say. I mean, we take on board what they say. We signed, and this is a cross-party thing as well with the unions, the Dying to Work charter, which is outside there, which is really an important thing for me, that we look after our staff and the interests of our staff, particularly those that are terminally ill. So that came from the unions, and we've taken that on board and embraced it. Councillor Fox-Hewitt was there at the signing. Councillor Proctor would have been, but he couldn't make it. But so cross-party support for that. So I think going forward on the One Council programme, it's crucial that we work with our staff, work with the unions, and also keep members involved as well, which we do through obviously regularly pushing out the newsletter email that goes out to staff, and also through Mark Holland's scrutiny committee, the FAPS committee, which will be having regular reports on that. Councillor Fee, you're quite right about the website. I think not many people really want to look at agendas, do they? But what they want to do is check their planning application or want to comment on a planning application. And that same multi-click feature, which we have on our lovely little website, it could be 6 clicks before you get to find your planning application you want to look at. Under the new website, that will all be streamlined and will be a more professional look, and a lot like what a lot of other councils have got for their websites. Ours is long due a renew, and it's been tied in with the One Council programme, and that one front door, that's the front door for everybody. I will say again, no matter how they contact the council, will be launched in September. We're just finishing off the final bits of consultation with staff before we do launch that, and members will be made aware of that and hopefully can take part in the launch of that as we get towards September. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councillor Tagg. I have 3 other members who wish to speak. Councillor Sue Moffat, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Fear beat me to the comment about the website, and I just look forward to a ball of yarn being provided that will make it easier for us to find our way in and out of it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moffat. Councillor Kyle Robinson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to ask if Kidsgrove Customer Service Desk at the Kidsgrove Town Hall, that is usually manned by 2 customer service operatives, will be returning. I'm obviously conscious that that centre is not reopened yet, and I know it's been closed for COVID, but it would be nice to see some service return there, so that, as we've said, the people who do feel digitally excluded and need access to services that aren't online, that they'll be able to go into the Kidsgrove Customer Service Centre as they have done in the past. I know it's very popular, and I know that Councillor Tagg, you were part of the administration that originally did a lot of work around the Customer Service Centre in Kidsgrove, and I know it's always been well received by local residents. So I hope that that will form part of this work, and that you know, our residents will be served equally across the borough. Also, I think that the leader, you know, rightly touched on the fact that access to online may be due to financial limitations, and that's correct. And we've seen during the COVID situation that when most of the things to book online vaccines and book your tests, a lot of it is online and links, and whilst there is a phone number you can ring, it isn't advertised probably as much as the online service. And I've seen where we've come across young people who've ran out of phone credit. You know, they get so much data on the mobile phones and haven't been able to top up, so perhaps haven't been able to access the services as easily as other people. So that is, you know, it's not always just elderly people. It can sometimes be the younger generation that struggle to access online services, as surprising as that may sound. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Councillor Annabel Lawley, please.
Thank you. Mine is more to kind of touch on what Councillor Fear said and Councillor Moffat in terms of the new layout. many, without naming businesses, many businesses will change their websites and they may look user-friendly initially, but actually the contact us section is often hidden behind the frequently asked questions, and then you're looped back to the homepage. And I want assurance that the contact us details are going to be at the forefront to not create hurdles for residents to contact the council when they need to.
Thank you, Councillor Lawley. Do you wish to respond, sir?
Okay, yeah, thank you, Councillor Lawley. I will
Tagg.
make sure that that happens on the design for the website. Kyle, thank you for your question. No decisions have been made yet on the reopening of the centre in Kidsgrove, but it's something I want to see, like we've done with the Guildhall, for example. We've seen a lot more use of that building. I think working with the town council, we have got through the town deal fund a commitment for a hub of some description within Kidsgrove. It'd be great to bring that all together under the roof and actually finish off what we started a few years ago when we refitted it and we got Princess Anne, didn't we, the Princess Royal, to come and open it. And I think really the future of that really is in a multi-purpose use with a council operation there as well, along the lines of the one open door. So I think anything we can do to bring that about is the right time now, I think, because of the COVID pause we've had, because of a lot of offices and customer centres being closed, that we can get a design and an offer for Kidsgrove that would take it forward and keep it sustainable in the long term.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. We move on to paragraph 3, back on track, coronavirus pandemic recovery update. Do members have any comments or questions on this, please? Okay. Councillor Andrew Fear, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This is a question provoked by my excursion to the craft market last Sunday. It's great to see these markets have come back since we've had lifting of some of the restrictions on us. I was really impressed to see quite a vibrant turnout there. I'm being told, in fact, that there's a waiting list for stalls. All the stalls are taken up. And I shall certainly be going there again. I'd just like to ask the portfolio holder, what else is there in the pipeline? Because personally, I feel as our high streets begin to change, this is going to become a more and more important part of generating prosperity in the borough.
For question or comment from Councillor Andrew Parker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is regarding this marvellous facility that we are sat in this evening. So I'll get straight to the point, if I may. Can the portfolio holder tell us if all the facilities of J2 are now fully open?
Thank you, Councillor Parker. And I've got a further question or comment from Councillor Barry Panther, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My comment goes to the Council Cabinet Member for Finance and Regeneration, and it's to do with the ancient market. Can he please comment on the financial and footfall success since the reopening of the market after pandemic lockdown?
Thank you, Councillor Panther. Could I ask Councillor Tagg or the relevant Cabinet portfolio holder to answer those 3 questions, please?
I think the 2 market ones can go to Councillor Sweeney and the J2 one to Councillor Jill Waring.
Thank you.
As they say in the army, pull up a sandbag, and I'll tell you a story. On Sunday, I went to my allotment on Sunday. I have an allotment. It's a bit sad, but I have an allotment. And after I finished the allotment, it was a glorious baking hot day. I thought, I'll go to the Artisan Market. I always go to the Artisan Market anyway, but I thought, as up that part of the world, I'll nip up to Kiel, and I'll see if Councillor Fear wants to come with me. And sure enough, Councillor Fear was out his back garden. He came to the door, and 2 minutes later, we were on our way down to Newcastle. And we were there about 3 hours, myself and Councillor Fear. We wandered off around the market. I bought a couple of pies and Punk's Puds, of course, which you have to go to. And then went to the Wildings counter, which for people who don't go is a beer stall. And we sat by the Guildhall and had a beer and watched the world go by in a baking hot, lovely day. And in fact, the mayor came and had a chat with us. And I think I'd normally see Councillor Panther there, but he wasn't actually there today. Councillor Rout was there. And the vice chairman of the bid came to talk to us for a while. And we had a splendid time, really, just watching the world go by and sitting in the sun. And then after a while, we uprooted and went up to the Windmill Bistro, the Portuguese bistro I've banged on about before. And we had a bit of lunch and a bottle of Portuguese beer. And I say we were there for 3 hours and the atmosphere was absolutely delightful. And I can't say to people, go to the market and have a look at it one day, one of these artisan markets. It was a thoroughly enjoyable way of spending 3 hours on a Sunday lunchtime. And I'd recommend it to absolutely anybody. And I can't remember what Councillor Fear asked. Yes, I can. He was asked about other events. On the third Sunday of every month, we've got the Artisan Market, which, as he says, is sold out. There's a waiting list of stalls there. On the 29th of August, there's an Artisan pop-up market, which is going to be a sort of a family type thing, it'll be a bit different. 7th of August, we've got the Astley Fest. Every fourth Friday, of course, the Farmers Market, which again is sold out. Record fair on the 22nd and the 29th of August. Now, this is the sign of things, because the guy who organises that didn't want to come for a while because he wants to go on holiday. But the people who do the record fair, they really want to come down because they make money out of it. And they want to come and attend. So that's going to sort of date out for that. The Continental Food Market, the Christmas version, is in December. We haven't got a date for that yet, but it will happen in December. And finally, the one that really is going to set Councillor Fear into sort of paroxysms of joy is next Sunday we have a vegan market. And that again is sold out. So I think we really, well, I'm not saying we're there yet, I'm not saying we're wonderful, but I think the market is certainly improving, and the atmosphere of the town centre in general. There was a young lady singing outside Wilkinson's today, and she was absolutely tremendous. I know she come from Hanley apparently, but she was absolutely superb. It's just the ambiance, if you like, of the whole area was just nice. It was a nice place to spend a bit of time. That's the question to Councillor Fear. As to Councillor Panther, I've got a few things about the stall occupancy now. We're up to about 64%, which is compared to what it was like, is obviously hugely better because the place was shut, so it can't be worse. But some of the days, the Tuesday, the Antique Forum Market, 91% occupancy. 79, which is the Antique Forum again, so as you were. Thursday, which is the Antiques Forum, 79%. 44% on the general market. The Farmers Market's always sold out. Saturday, another 45%. The Record Fair Market, 81%. And the Artisan Market, 100%, with a waiting list. In fact, if you put the extra stalls they put in, I think you come to 136% occupancy on that market. So one of our aspirations when we took over the council was to reinvigorate our market, regenerate, make it a place to come, make it a bit of a destination. People come there. You know, people go to Nantwich to the market. People go to Stone Farmers Market. Speaking to the guy in the Punk's Bud, he says he gets more money out of Newcastle than he does at Stone. And this is what we're looking to achieve. And I think we're making great leaps and bounds into redeveloping our market and making it a welcoming place that people enjoy to come. I hope that's answered your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Can I ask Councillor Jill Waring to answer the question?
Thank you,
please?
Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Park, for the question. Yes, J2, this wonderful facility. Yeah, all the facilities are open, and as you can see, it's really good at the moment, and as COVID safe as it can possibly be. During the restrictions, some of the staff were redeployed to customer service posts and COVID marshalling. And also during that time, they took the opportunity to give them further training and staff in customer care and marketing to increase the membership. we did take over a leisure centre with problems, unfortunately, but we have sorted out now the faulty pool and the pipe work, and there are no more leaks. And as a result of that, some tiles have had to be replaced. We've sorted out the leaking roof. This had been leaking for many years, but it's finally been resolved, and that's brilliant. It has been tough during the pandemic, but we do have some successes. I can tell you that membership numbers have grown from 1,650 in April to 1,961 in June of this year, and that's an increase of over 25%. The average occupancy levels for most activities has been in excess of 82% by the end of June, and the net promoter score was 55.81%, and that's our customers who would recommend J2 to friends and family. I've got more statistics for you, but overall, I think that J2 is really doing very well, and I'm really happy with the progress we've made in spite of the pandemic, and I think we have a really good team here at J2, and I think it can only get better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Waring. Can I come back to Councillor Tagg at this moment?
Is there any more questions on this subject? Sorry, I'll come in at the end.
I thought you wanted
sorry,
to.
Sorry, no, I'll come at the end then. Yeah.
I've got a fellow councillor, Councillor John Cooper, wishing to speak, please.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Thank you.
Sorry,
it's quite
John.
all right. It's quite all right.
Yeah.
I don't mind.
Sorry, I apologise.
Councillor Cooper at all, you know.
I was
councillor.
looking at you at the time.
No problem, thank you. Through the leader, I'd like to Councillor Sweeney and agree with him that as a shopper in the town centre, it's really it's quite great to see more and more people using the town centre. And if we can move, you know, the DA's plans to generate more businesses, and hopefully we can get some independent businesses into the shops and really get people back into the town centre. But just a question to Councillor Sweeney, did he buy anything other than the beer and sandwiches that he said he enjoyed? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor John Williams.
I had two of the punk puds, syrup sponge pudding and the sticky toffee, and I had a steak pie and a chicken and mushroom pie and a pint. Thank you. No, that was all. That was enough. Yeah, that's a good start.
Face. Just in jest, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, I'm only just making that point. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And I
Councillor
think
Tagg?
the bread pudding from Punk Pies is very nice. Punk Pies, yeah, is very nice as well. No, just on the overall sort of getting back on track after the pandemic, I think we are at a crucial stage, are we not? As since Monday, we've opened up more, and it's really, you know, our cases in Newcastle, I think we're the second highest now in the county. All of the districts have gone up as it has across the country, mainly in the younger people. So, I mean, the urges is for the younger people to get those vaccines and get the second vaccine, which you know, does help, and because we don't want to have to go back into lockdowns and severe lockdowns where we have to close the market, where we have to close J2, and it's all pulling together on that and acting sensibly, particularly the younger generation, which it's spreading amongst at the moment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. We move on to paragraph 4, Business Improvement District, Newcastle Town Centre, reballot. Do members have any comments or questions, please? I have 3. Could I ask Councillor Helena Maxfield, please?
Thanks, Mayor. Although it's still early days with the new CCTV and subway arts, which are now in place to make the town feel like a safer place for all, has it had any effect on the cohort of town centre beggars and antisocial behaviour that had been an identified problem prior to and during the lockdowns?
Thank you, Councillor Maxfield. Councillor Julie Cooper, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. A great example of the council working with the bid is to renew all the CCTV in the town centre. Can the leader update us on the roll out of the new CCTV programme, please?
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Councillor John Williams, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Firstly, could I congratulate the bid on the third, on getting through the elections of the businesses in and around the town centre for the third term. And as a past director, you know, I fly the flag for the bid when I visit the town centre and talk to business people. I know Councillor Tagg is on the board as a representative of the council, and quite rightly, he can finger on the pulse and help the bid, work with the bid that put so much resource into the town centre from the businesses who pay the bid. And it's an excellent progress for the town to working then, especially with the town deal coming on. So really in saying that, and also could I ask the leader of the council to thank the chair, Eddie, and Vev, who I'm afraid is ill, and now she could pass her not condolences, but hope she gets better in the near future for the excellent work they've done as business leaders in the town centre to not only start the bid off, but actually work from that to say the third term. So really, that's the question really. And also, second question really, can we maybe have as we're moving out of this COVID situation, well, I hope we are, pray we are, that we could have the bid to come to give us a presentation on the work that they're doing to explain to the full council what they're about and what they're doing in the town centre, in and around the town centre. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Williams. Would you like to respond, Councillor Tagg?
Yes,
please?
thank you. On 2 points, two of the questions I'll respond to then. I think Jill Heesom on the issue with the which Councillor Maxfield raised, but on the CCTV. Thank you, Julie, for that. The CCTV system that we worked with the bid is now fully operational in the town. It's making it safer. All the trees that were blocking the views have been taken down or cut back as well. So we have a functioning CCTV system that can be monitored. It's been monitored at the Stoke Monitoring Centre. And it's obviously working on further developments on the arterial routes into the town, including the subways, as everybody knows, and Councillor Maxfield mentioned, we're doing a lot of work on the subways and had money through the town deal for CCTV in the subway. That should be working within the next 4 weeks. So I think CCTV does reassure people to come into the town. There are many issues in the town, and Councillor Maxfield has mentioned one of them, and CCTV helps to, I think, fight that. And as soon as we can get the subways CCTV operational, the better. Councillor Williams, thank you for your 2 points there. Yeah, I think the bid is got a bright future, I think, with the new bid 5-year term and also its plan. I think it's just at the right time as we're emerging from the COVID and everything's opening up that we can really get working with what we're doing on the market, working with our town centre officer, Nick Moore, as well, to really move the town centre forward. And I think you're quite right, Councillor Williams, is I'm sure that because we've got a new bid manager, a new bid board members, a new deputy chair as well, that in the past they've come to speak to the scrutiny committee, and I think that would be a perfect start. And then if we could have something coming to full council in the future, I'm sure that would be good. But I think the relevant scrutiny committee, which I think is economic development, now we're beginning to get back to face-to-face meetings. I'm sure they would love to come in and outline their plans. And I would just like to echo what Councillor Williams said about Viv, and I know she's still involved with a business as well, which is a key business in the town centre for the drinking community, but she has had a tough time and still is having a tough time. So she stood down as vice chair, but still involved in the town centre. But I'll hand over to Councillor Heesom now for the question related to the people on the town centre that are causing some issues.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg, forgetting names this evening. Any other speakers on paragraph 4? I've got Councillor Stubbs with his hand up. Councillor Heeson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor
I
Maxfield.
can't see
I'll just
anyone else.
respond.
Can I take Councillor Heeson first? Thank you.
I'm answering the question. Right then. Thank you, Councillor Maxfield. I'm probably going to go over a little bit of what the leader said. The CCTV project has provided much needed reassurance to town centre users and has been helpful for police colleagues in monitoring the town centre usage as part of ongoing patrols and enforcement activity with the Borough Council on a daily basis. I'm pleased to say that we've got an introduction of which probably helps with the ASB, a rough sleepers navigator post and a rough sleepers coordinator. And obviously some of that is linked with the antisocial behaviour individuals. We've got the additional CCTV installations underway in the subways to enhance the existing coverage in the town centre, and we're working with support providers and voluntary sector partners to develop a range of diversionary activities. There's ongoing consultation with the market traders to share intelligence and to provide reassurance of ongoing activities. And there's a development of further target hardening to key antisocial behaviour sites, for example, alligating. Approval's also been granted for, I'm not quite sure what we're going to call them, but at the moment it's the Welcome Back Marshall pilot project using the Welcome Back funding. And this will provide an additional visible presence to the town centre to challenge and disrupt antisocial behaviour hotspots and incidents and to offer reassurance to the public. I think that's as far as I've got at the moment, if that's okay.
Thank you very much for your comments, Councillor Eason. Further question or comment now from Councillor Mike Stubbs, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to thank the leader for bringing this tonight. The Business Improvement District is something that Labour councillors are really, really pleased about. You know, it's not just the organisation, but it's the events that it brings. It's the purple flag evenings that, the purple flag safety for the town centre, that is something that they sort of spearheaded with us. All I'd say from this side of the aisle is that we're really pleased that we started it 10 years ago. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. Any response from?
No.
No. Okay, fine. Anyone else wishing to speak on paragraph 4? No. Okay, we now move on to paragraph 5, Town Deals and Future High Streets Fund. Do members have any comments or questions? I see 2. Councillor Jill Burnett, please.
Thank you. I'd just like to say the long-awaited lifts have finally arrived and are currently being installed at Kidsgrove train station. It's great to see these lifts. The years I've spent lugging suitcases, buggies and various things over there and having to redirect disabled people because they can't access our train station. So I think it's fantastic that it's finally been delivered by the town deal money, and it's going to make Kidsgrove fully accessible station for all, and it's great news. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. Councillor Paul Waring, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say I welcome the £50 million plus investment by the government in our borough, which will allow the council to deliver long-awaited and much-needed regeneration schemes in Newcastle and Kidsgrove. Can I just ask the leader if he agrees with me that thanks to the government, we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make a real difference for our residents? Thank you.
Would you like to respond, Councillor Tagg?
Certainly, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you to Councillor Burnett and Councillor Waring for those. I think you're quite right, Jill, about the station. That's a real game changer, isn't it, for the station? It's been, now all political persuasions have been trying to get this done over the years, but it's the money that's come from this government at the moment, the town deal money, and that foresight and investment in not only Kidsgrove, but Newcastle town as well, that has led to that. I think that's a great development, and as along with all the other things that are going on within the town deal in Kidsgrove is great. I think, yes, Paul, it is a once in a lifetime to make a difference. I think sometimes you have to pinch yourself that all this money is coming to us after all of the years when no money did come into the borough. I'm not going to get political or anything, but now we have money coming. I think we've got to make the best use of that, and we have through our plans at Kidsgrove. And you, Paul, sit on the town deal board as part of Go Kidsgrove in your area, and of course we've got the town deal board in Newcastle with really exciting plans. 16+ million in Kidsgrove, and also the 23.5 in if it's throwaway phrases now, only 23.5 million. What are we going to do with that? Well, we've got plans to make it really use of that, and we've also got the Future High Streets Fund as well, which is really important, and we'll be seeing things happening pretty soon on that, and there's a question later about that as well. So, but really exciting, and this is once in a lifetime, and we're already seeing the results, as Councillor Burnett has said.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Any further questions or comments? No, thank you. We move on to paragraph 6, Kidsgrove Sports Centre refurbishment. Do members have any comments or questions, please? I see one. Councillor Jill Burnett, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say, following the confirmation of this town deal money, the sports centre's been going leaps and bounds.
So, could I ask you to? That should be better. Thank you.
Following the town deal money, the sports centre's been moving on in leaps and bounds. There's been so much work going on behind the scenes. All the gym equipment's been sorted now, and all the booking in systems and all the other equipment, it's all coming together now. We had a visit a couple of weeks ago from Robert Jenrick, and everyone's really excited with what's going on there. The public can't wait for next spring, and we're all so happy that it's all going through. Thank you.
Can I just make a quick comment there? I do hope I get the opportunity, along with yourself, to be at the opening of the sports centre. Councillor Sweeney, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, when Rob Jenrick came, he's the minister concerned. We know Rob from his time when he stood for us at the general election, so we know him quite well. And we had a good walk around the leisure centre and swimming pool at Kidsgrove. And for anybody, you can see where the money's being spent. The hall is just a bare shell. The swimming pool is being half filled in. The diving end, the end bit's being filled in. Absolutely gutted. It's like a house that's been taken back to the bare brick, and they're going to start rebuilding it. And you can really see. I said to him, "This is what you're getting for your money." You can see real progress on the ground, and I imagine it's going to be a fantastic facility when it's open. And I also imagine the people at Kidsgrove are really looking forward to it. I'm sure we're going to look forward to opening it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Any response, Councillor Tabb?
Yes, I think it's all just been said about the project, and I think we're using the 2.45 million from the town deal to complement the council's money. But we've also heard today, I think hot off the presses, isn't it, Mr. Simon Mack, is that obviously it's not a massive amount, but it's still more than we thought we would get. We were due to get 100,000, weren't we, from Sport England? They've now upped that to 1,000, under 75,000, which will then buy some more equipment, which is what Jill is talking about, and some features within the centre. So that's bringing in money from outside. So it's a less of a draw on this capital programme. Now we've put the money aside, which is it's really helped the town deal again to make that project deliverable. And as Councillor Sweeney has said, I was unable to go to, suffering from a jab side effects. that day, but Stephen met with Robert Jemrick over there, and I've seen some of the pictures we've seen just recently from the work that's been going on inside, the evaluation of the work that's taking place, and it is a complete strip back to the bare walls, so we can get that 25-year, almost a brand new sports facility out of it for Kidsgrove, which we promised a long time ago now, and we'll deliver it by the late spring next year, all being well. But thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Any more speakers on paragraph 6, please? No. We now move on to paragraph 7, the Borough Local Plan. Do members have any comments or questions, please? I just see one. Councillor Graham Hudden, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a question really for the portfolio holder for planning. Recently, my question stems from a meeting I've had with developers in my ward or the advisors of developers who claimed that A, we don't have a local plan fit for purpose, and B, claimed that we didn't have a 5-year housing. So my question really is, can we have an update regarding the local plan in terms of how it's progressing against the timelines, and where is the council with regard to the 5-year housing supply, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hudden. Can I direct that question to the portfolio holder? Paul Northcott, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Hutton, for your question. Since we made a decision as an administration to go our own way in the local plan process, we had to do a number of stages before we could initiate the roadmap on the timetable, and that was to agree the local development scheme and a draft statement of community involvement. This was basically setting the framework for the progression of the local plan. We're now at the stage now where we're looking at the evidential database that we're going to inform our decisions to go into the timetable that we've set ourselves for the next major bit of work is the options and issues paper in September, autumn this year. To do that, we need to do work on the assessment of the hierarchy of rural centres. We need to look at, for example, what will be the sustainable housing provision for the new plan date from 2020 to 2040. We need to look at that in terms of where we are and the evidential work behind the economic growth and the strategy that's going to be underpinning the housing numbers that we're hopefully going to be bringing forward for the preferred options. Because of the pandemic, we need to be extra thorough in terms of the work behind that to make sure that the evidential base is not skewed by COVID and the inactivity or activity that's raised. So before we go into the September part of the timetable, which I may add, the first time in 7+ years, the actual local plan is within its time frames. I hope that this will continue in the future. That is our goal. As things stand at the moment, it's well and truly on track for the next major bit of work, which our policy officers are working on now. And I can gleefully report that our policy team is at full quota to match the expectations that we've placed upon it in terms of our stringent timescales to develop and deliver the local plan. The housing figures and housing numbers will be part of that process, and as a council we need to respond every year in terms of our 5-year land supply position. A part of that evidential work will be brought to the fore to inform that decision. I hope that answers your question. At the moment, we have a 5-year land supply, taking on board the 25% provision for student housing. Hopefully, we can bolster that if the calls to sites bring in other additional applications along the way and identify pieces of land for the future use of the plan.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Northcott. I understand Councillor Andrew Fear would like to make a comment or ask a question, please.
It's simply to just be helpful for Councillor Hutton. I think we all get circulated these things, but members may have had sight of an appeal decision this last week where an appeal against the council planning decision was dismissed, and the inspector in that very firmly stated that we do have a 5-year land supply. That was one of the grounds that the appeal was made on, and clearly in the view of that inspector at the moment we have a 5-year land supply.
Thank you, Councillor Fear. Would you like to make a comment, Councillor Tagg?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we've just seen the response from Councillor Northcott and from Councillor Fear, and they're the team driving this this local plan forward with our officers. Now, we've got very confident that we will get this in place on the timescales, and it was a refreshing change, really, from what we were going through, sort of wading through mud with the joint plan previously, which was over obviously between two councils, each going in different directions. And I'm really pleased with the progress we've made on the local plan. There'll be regular reports through Cabinet and to all members about how we progress it.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Any more speakers on paragraph 7? No? Thank you. Paragraph 8, Aspire Housing Prospectus for joint working. Do members have any comments or questions, please? I see one. Councillor John Williams, please.
Again, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I think we agree. I think that the close working with Aspire has got to be good for the residents of the borough, without a doubt. We've seen this, from Newcastle Housing to Aspire, and Aspire have been very busy in developing a lot of sites in the borough. As we see them on the roundabout, just Rycroft there, and up at Cheston, and in my ward, and in Nutton, and different areas. So it's good that we're not part of those developments, but where I think I'm right in saying where we have doing a joint development with our land or whatever area of involvement. But really, the question is, and I won't use the word social housing, because I think in some areas it's become a dirty word, really. It really is sad that's the way it is. But I'd like to say, association housing properties, can I ask the leader of the council that where we are involved with the Aspire and where we're not, are we putting any pressure on Aspire to replace the housing that they are demolishing and rebuilding, and quite a few of those are for sale? Are they replacing those with affordable rented accommodation? I'll put it that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Would you like to respond, Councillor Tagg, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think what John has said at the beginning of his comments is that Aspire has evolved, hasn't it, over the years, from when it used to just be, working from out of one office in the old civic offices to being this big company with so many arms and so many facets to it. And this agreement we've reached with them in the prospectus is for us to work together on developments. We already are doing that. We're going to be doing that more in the future with the regeneration of the town, and also with the what we're doing over in Nutton and in Chesterton and other places. And I think we'll make sure there'll be a social element in all of that. But you're quite right. The development they knocked down on the roundabout up in by the Rycroft and the Nutton Lane roundabout is going to be a different type of development that was there than there before, catering for a different type of people. And I think through the planning rules we put in place and through our local plan, we can ensure that's housing for people to get on the housing ladder for a start, but also for those that can rent houses as well, needs to be in there. And we'll certainly make that case as we meet Aspire and when they bring developments forward, and if we're doing joint developments, that is included.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Any other comments or questions on paragraph 8, please. No. We move on to paragraph 9, future provision for temporary accommodation. Do members have any comments or questions, please? I see one. Councillor, sorry, I see another one now. I take the question or comment from Councillor Jenny Cooper, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to comment that it's good to see the council making provision to house homeless people within the borough. But could the portfolio holder tell us how the council is working with the police and others to tackle the problems of individuals who come into Newcastle town centre to cause antisocial behaviour, please?
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Councillor Barry Panther, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there any register kept with the council of those providing temporary accommodation? And if so, where can one get a copy of it?
Thank you, Councillor Panther. Would you like to respond, Councillor Tagg, or straight to Councillor Eason? Councillor Eason, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Going to the antisocial behaviour, I think partly I answered some of that in a previous question, but we have organised a high-level engagement meeting with partners and agencies such as the Police BID, PCC Office, the Lyme Trust and Newcastle Borough Council, which will be looking at ways of dealing with this antisocial behaviour in a targeted way. The other question, it would be Sarah Moore from Housing that could provide the list. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eason. Councillor Tagg, please.
Just back what Councillor Heatham has said there. I think it's this high-level meeting she refers to is really important, really, I think, because we do have a lot of issues, we have a lot of complaints, and we have a lot of people with really complicated, detailed issues. And I think we know that they're not homeless, so to speak, but they're living in a accommodation around the town centres. To get those providers in, get the police in, get the council officers around the table to see how we can deal with some of that, I think. And I think what Councillor Panther requires, we can ensure he gets a list of those. And of course, this item which we took to Cabinet is about getting that temporary accommodation within the borough, because ever so often, almost certainly, we have to accommodate people outside of the borough as well. So we want to accommodate them in the borough.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Any other speakers on paragraph 9, please? No. Paragraph 10. Urban tree planning strategy and encouraging greater use of parks and open spaces. Do members have any comments or questions? I see 2. Take the question or comment from Councillor Julie Cooper, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm very glad that Cabinet have brought this forward as the Green Space Working Party that Sue Moffat chaired, and Mark Holland was also with me, and 1 or 2 others of our council. And we have actually come up with the idea that we wanted more trees within the area and to make more use of the green space. So I'm just glad that it's been brought to, we put it to the Cabinet, and I'm just very glad that the Cabinet have taken it on board. And thank you very much. That's all I can say. Thank you, Cabinet.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Councillor Mark Holland, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I look around the room and I think sometimes we become desensitized to incredible success. this has been a long leader's statement, but we've had quite a few of them where people have sort of asked questions and they've sort of sat back and everyone else has just sort of, it's washed over them. But what a fantastic world we live in. We're going to recover from coronavirus. We got 50 million quid from the government. We're going to reopen Kidsgrove Leisure Centre. The bid's doing great guns. The market is fantastic. Steve Sweeney's putting weight on because of that. We're going to work better with Aspire Housing. We're going to, what else is on here? The future of temporary accommodation. People are going to be looked after in our borough. We're going to work to create a local plan that suits the needs of our borough and our residents. And we're going to do it on time for a change. We're doing all sorts of fantastic things. We're going to plant trees, Mr. Mayor. We're going to plant trees. Councillor Cooper has already alluded to the work that the scrutiny working group did on this. And I would like to pay tribute to Councillor Moffat for her chairmanship of that, and to the very modest Councillor Julie Cooper, who was vice chair of that. And it's fantastic the Cabinet have been able to take some of that forward and to combine it with work that our administration is already doing to ensure that we plant more trees in recognition of Her Majesty's Platinum Jubilee next year, which I'm very much looking forward to, but also to meet our commitments that we made as an authority, again, coming straight out of this chamber and into the corridors of power to reach net zero and to reduce our carbon impact on the world. And isn't it fantastic, Mr. Mayor? Isn't this all wonderful stuff?
Thank you very much, Councillor Holland.
That I'd like to thank the Japanese government for sending over the cherry blossoms, which we've now got in the Brampton. So thank you very much. It goes to the Japanese government. They've actually helped us start building our tree towards our tree planting. Thank you.
Okay, we move on. I've got a question or comment from Councillor Andrew Fox-Hewitt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The council talks often of doing the right thing in this chamber on election leaflets regarding decarbonisation, climate change, and commitments to achieving carbon net zero. Indeed, I recall Councillor Holland giving his best attempts at replicating Sir David Attenborough in one of his contributions at one such meeting, but sounding more like Bill Oddie. As a council, we have an approved open space strategy. We have an approved use of green spaces strategy. We have an approved air quality strategy. We have an approved council climate emergency motion. Tonight, we have an urban tree planting strategy and encouraging greater use of parks and open spaces strategy put before us. When this administration talks of sustainability commitments, how does it reconcile its strategy papers, motions, and talk with its decisions taken at Cabinet to sell off or market precious green spaces and fell large numbers of trees in approved plans in spite of huge local opposition and submissions by the people of this borough? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fox-Hewitt. Would you like to respond, Councillor Tagg, please?
Certainly would. I think that, first of all, Councillor Julie Cooper is right. Obviously, we listened particularly on the use of parks and open space, which is really good work by the Scrutiny Committee. Mark Holland, what more can you say on the back of that? I think it's great that we can offer some of our smaller urban green spaces to for tree planting, as we did in the Sandy Lane situation, which Julie mentioned, and obviously tie it into the Jubilee of the Platinum Jubilee, the only ever monarch that will probably have a platinum jubilee for 70 years. I think that's really good. It all ties into our sustainable environment strategy, which this administration put through, putting at the centre a sustainable environment in the borough. That's about reducing our carbon, planting more trees, and all sorts of things which are in the action plan, which Councillor Johnson is monitoring and bringing to Cabinet on a regular basis. I think just obviously the politics that came into it there was from Councillor Fox-Hewitt, but I just need to remind him that the bit of land he's talking about was taken out of the open place strategy, was taken out of the playing pitch strategy by the previous Labour administration. So I think if he wants to read the Cabinet agenda on the urban tree planting strategy, we'll see what we're aiming to do there, and you'll see what land is being brought into play there. And obviously what we plan to do is to, part of what Councillor Johnson said he would do at Cabinet is we're going to ask councillors to nominate bits of green space, urban green space that fit those categories forward for potential tree planting programme in the future. So every member will get an opportunity to put land forward into that, which we will be looking to. I think there's going to be a lot of trees around towards the autumn as the green canopy gets going, and that won't cost us anything. All we have to do is provide the land, but also in the future years we will get the carbon offset from those, which is part of the point of not only being beautiful to see, but also beautiful to the environment. And also, just to make a point also, is you don't just plant the trees, you have to manage them long term. We've planted those in the Sandy Lane area. They need to be looked after, they need to be secured, and probably some more planted on that bit of land as well to create that that either an orchard or an urban woodland, which we want to see. So I think it's great. This is a great news story really for the borough, and I think if we can mark the Queen's Platinum Jubilee by planting trees, which will be there for generations to come, I think that's really a good thing which we could do. Thank you, Chair. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tagg.
Mr. Mayor, could I just make a short point of clarity, please? Just a point of clarity. The leader just mentioned, well, he's assumed I was talking about one site. That was his false assumption. It wasn't just the crematorium. It was also the Bradwell site by the hospital where he approved plans to fell 85 trees after his much talked
Mr. Mayor, I don't think we have a debate on this, do we? I mean, the orders of the council are very clear that there is no discussion of these things.
Can we move on, please? I've got two other...
Could I respond, Mr. Mayor? Could I respond, Mr. Mayor? But the leader always has the final say.
Thank you. Can we move on? I have two other members wishing to add a question or comment. Could I ask Councillor Jill Williams, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mine's a question, actually. When we're planting all these marvellous trees and setting up all these lovely parks, do we have the resources to maintain and the staff to maintain these trees? At the very moment, it takes 3 years to even get somebody to come out and have a look at a tree. It took us 3 years to get a dead tree on the highway and out in St. Michael's Road from the county cut down. And as far as working with Aspire and the county on maintenance of trees, there's a joke. So before we go into partnerships, can we have all our own trees maintained before we plant any more? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I have another question or comment from Councillor Dave Jones, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly hope that we have future platinum jubilees with our future monarchs. I wish them all the health in their lives yet to be that they last that long. I wasn't going to say anything, but Councillor Holland's rousing speech gave me great enthusiasm. As I'm reading through this, I see that planting of trees is going to play a key part in our carbon offsetting, which is something I heartily support. I'd like to ask the leader if perhaps in support of that carbon offsetting, the questions that he writes for his members to ask him on his leader's statement, could they be electronic instead of printed out in future to try and support that offset of carbon within the chamber here?
Any response, Councillor Tagg?
Of course. No, just on the point that Councillor Fox-Hewitt did in his intervention, which was unconstitutional, it's the fact that he talks about I believe, the Knipe waste site by the hospital then, does he? Well, who put that through the disposal process and was applying for planning permission? Now, that was the previous Labour administration, so it takes a while to sell these bits of land, but who had the idea to do it in the first place? Jill Williams is a very good point, actually, and I think we need to, that's why we've got to have the correct species of plants, and we have to have a management plan, because of course, as you've already seen in the Sandy Lane, we don't have to cut all the grass now because of the trees planted. So that saves our parks maintenance team the other side of it, we're saving some money as well. But I think it's all to do with the correct species, which when you talk about highway trees, we all know that the correct species weren't planted in the first place, and now they tower over houses, bits of branches falling off, etc. So there needs to be a management plan along with this, and that's what Councillor Johnson is working on. And as for the Platinum Jubilee thing, what I was meaning was I don't think any of the current heirs to the throne are going to get on the throne early enough to do 70 years, I think, because by the time the progression, we could go into this and talk about this for ages, couldn't we, Councillor Jones? But it looks as if, probably going to be only one, certainly in our lifetimes anyway, so because we're all not going to live for another 70 years. So I think it's really pleasing that we can do for this. Was there another point after that, Councillor Jones? Oh, of course. How would I forget that? Well, I can remember when a previous leader of your group was handing out printed questions to his members as well, weren't you, Kyle?
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. I see another member wishing to ask a question or make a comment, and that is Councillor Graham Hudden, please.
Similarly to Councillor Jones, I was also very much moved by Councillor Holland's, and I'd like to add to the jubilation. And this is also about Bradwell, where I've been helping some of the residents there. They've set up Friends of Bradwell Dingle, and this is a community initiative which is being helped by this council. The Parks Department is advising them on what they can do, and they're trying to beautify their area. And I just think it's absolutely wonderful when a group of our residents come together to create something yet more beautiful out of what we've got. So I would like to extend my congratulations to those residents and just add to the jubilation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hudden. I have another comment or question from Councillor Kyle Robinson, please.
Just a very quick one, Mr. Mayor. The leader has just said that I used to push out paper questions for members of my group. I did sometimes, but I used recycled paper, Councillor Tagg, so I can get away with it.
Thank you. Any response from Councillor Tagg?
No, that's okay.
No. Okay, thank you. Any more speakers on paragraph 10? No. We move to paragraph 11, the forward plan. Do members have any comments or questions on this matter, please? I see one. Councillor Fox-Hewitt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just a query as to regards when we can expect an updated forward plan account paying cognisance to the Prime Minister's promises of alpine fresh air in the borough. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments? A response from Councillor Tagg, please.
I know that our MP, excellent MP, Aaron Ballas, is working on the Prime Minister.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. We now move to agenda item 8, reports of the chairs of the scrutiny committees. Members, the next substantive item of business is the reports of the chairs of the scrutiny committees. This is agenda item 8, which is at pages 35 to 39 of the agenda. Written reports are attached for the Finance, Assets and Performance Scrutiny Committee, the Economy, Environment and Place Scrutiny Committee, and the Health, Wellbeing and Partnership Scrutiny Committee. These reports are here for information and noting. Please, can these reports be received? Thank you. I take it that the reports will be received. We move on to agenda item 9, reports of the chairs of the regulatory committees. Members, the next substantive item of business is the reports of the chairs of the regulatory committees. This is agenda item 9, which is at page 41 to 43 of the agenda. Written reports are attached for the audit and standards and licensing and public protection committees. A verbal update will be given for the planning committee. Councillor Andy Fear, would you like to give your update, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Tempus fugit, I note, so I shall be brief. Committee has met on its regular cycle. We've had good attendance. I'd like to thank members for their attendance at these meetings. We've moved now, of course, to hybrid style meetings, which have been, we had a few gremlins last night, I think it's fair to say, those of who were present, but nonetheless, I think these have been successful. We had last night, and I'm sure members have seen this on the agenda, an excellent set of performance reports from the committee, and I would like to thank our officers for the hard work in very difficult times. However, I don't wish Councillor Holland to launch into another rhapsody at this point, because of course every rose has a thorn, and I did note in those performance targets that we are slipping on the question of enforcement. Now, I think this is of concern. It's a front of house thing, and it's important for the public to see that these decisions made by the committee are enforced. I know the vice chairman shares my concern, as indeed does the portfolio holder, and I can assure members that we are addressing this issue with the head of the planning service at the moment.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fear. These reports are here for information and noting. Please, can the reports be received? I take it the reports are received. Item agenda 10, questions to the Mayor, Cabinet members and committee chairs. Members, the next agenda item is item 10, members' questions. I have received 2 questions for the leader and cabinet members. These have been tabled this evening and are contained in the papers in front of you. For anyone viewing electronically, they are on page 5 of your supplementary agenda. I will ask the members to read out their question, after which I will ask the leader or the relevant cabinet member to respond. The member asking the question may then ask a supplementary question. Could I remind members that if they have a supplementary question, it must be a question and not a statement, and it must be concise, focused, and relate to the subject matter of the initial question and answer. The first question is from Councillor Andrew Parker regarding the former civic offices. Councillor Parker, your question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is to the portfolio holder for finance, town centres and growth. And can that portfolio holder update the council on the timetable for the demolition of the old civic offices, please?
Thank you, Councillor Parker, for your question. Councillor Stephen Sweeney, your response, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor Parker. I think anybody who's been in the town recently will have noticed great big white sort of Lego building block type things stuck on the old civic offices car park these last couple of weeks, and there's a lot of plant and equipment, air conditioning, generators and stuff like that going on there now. This is all the preliminary work, the mobilisation stage, I think actually it's referred to. and the contractor will actually start pulling the thing down on the 9th of August 2021, going for a 44-week period, completion by mid-June 2022. Thank you, Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Councillor Parker, do you have a supplementary question at all?
I do indeed, Mr. Mayor. My second question is, what business rates will we save when we start demolition?
Yeah, business rates is an interesting question. The business rates we're paying on that site at the moment is £157,440. As soon as we start taking bricks out of it, that goes to zero because it's a ruin then. But that's the sort of saving we make. So the sooner we get it done, the sooner we can start saving this money. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. The second question is from Councillor Helena Maxfield regarding grants given to local businesses during lockdown. Councillor Maxfield, your question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the portfolio holder for finance, town centres and growth, could you tell us what the latest figure for the amount of grants that the council has given out in support to local business as a result of the coronavirus lockdown?
Councillor Sweeney, please.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Maxfield, for that question. Again, we always sort of eulogise, well, some of us eulogise over the government and the support they've given for people and for businesses. It's never enough money, I'm not trying to say it is, but the amount of money that we've passported out from this council is actually £39,422,374 to our businesses, which I think is a phenomenal amount of money. And it shows that the government's has listened to what people have said. And also, I think it does this council credit that we've got the money out so quickly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Councillor Maxfield, do you have a supplementary question?
I do. Supplementary is, do you envisage any central government grants either for businesses or the council?
Councillor Sweeney, your response, please.
No, I think the general feeling with the officers that this is it now, unless something major happens, that the grants are now coming to an end, and we've had everything we're going to get. Unless something happens, you can never say never. But at the moment, that seems to be the officers' opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Members, agenda item 11 is our next item. To receive petitions. I have not been made of any petitions to be handing in this evening. If a member indicates they have one, please indicate now. No petitions? Thank you. Agenda item 12 is where we would ordinarily consider any urgent business. I have no urgent business that needs to be considered this evening. Agenda item 13, disclosure of exempt information. Agenda item 13 is where we would ordinarily move to exclude the press and public to deal with any confidential reports, but there are no confidential reports to consider this evening. That, therefore, concludes the business for this meeting, and I therefore declare the meeting closed. For those members present, may I wish you a safe journey home, and I hope that everyone enjoys the rest of their evening. Thank you.
All right.
I'm not giving anything away.